Hello, this is Suzanne Duclos with All News Pipeline, Stefan Stanford with All News Pipeline and Before It's News, and we are joined with Dr. Jim Garrow, former government operative and whistleblower. We'd like to welcome you to the show, Mr. Garrow.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. Looking forward to this.
Dr. Garrow, there's been a lot of hot news around the country lately. Recently, Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney made the rounds on the mainstream news media and warned that we should be going to DEFCON level 1. Senator Lindsey Graham recently warned of America in flames, while Senator Jim Inhofe said that ISIS is working on a way to blow up an American city. You recently warned of possible shopping mall attacks and ISIS at the southern border. I'm sure that our readers would love to get an update from you on any of that.
I'll be glad to. As you know, we brought the news forward that the jihadis were moving across the southern border. More than just the movement itself and the fact that the border was porous was concerning to us. It was the fact that they were now bringing in a higher degree of weapon expertise and a type of weapon that we should really be aware of. As far away as Wyoming, a group were stopped, and the trunk of the car held a number of shoulder-fired missiles. But it wasn't just the normal shoulder-fired missile. It was, in fact, radar-locking missiles, which brings it to a whole new level. That means the ability to take down airliners, which, of course, is one of the major concerns.
So you have information on the specific weaponry that they're bringing across?
Yes, yeah, that kind of thing is shared with me quite regularly. I get phone calls now it's every day from police chiefs, police officers across America looking for help. There is a real lack of credible information that aids the process. These people are being trained by DHS and the FBI, but a number of them now realize that they're being shown to look in one direction when in fact the dangers are in another direction. So there's a bit of a disconnect now between, they appreciate the training, but they realize too that within the training there's a bit of a prestidigitation going on, some magic happening that ends up being like Barnum and Bailey, having you look in the wrong direction.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, after you came back from your infiltration tour, you spoke about the shopping mall threats, and soon after you did that, all of a sudden we hear in the news they have what they called Indy Mall X, a training drill at an Indiana mall. Then we see that there's mall threats on Twitter talking about the largest mall in Charlotte, and a former CIA agent, Michael Morrell, said he wouldn't be surprised if ISIS member showed up at a mall with an AK-47. Do you think any of that would have come out had you not first come back and exposed all this? And do you have any more information on specific threats towards malls?
You're the first people who've asked me the question that you just asked. It's very interesting, isn't it, that I brought forward that information, which was readily available to me. And suddenly we now have all over the place, people are declaring it to be absolutely true, though they never reference me. I noticed that. And I'm not looking for credit. The important thing is that the American people are prepared and warned and are given the ability to safeguard themselves. Do I think that it would have come forward? I'm quite doubtful that it would have come forward unless someone like myself had come forward and exposed what should have been given out to the American public right away.
With Lieutenant General McInerney warning of a new 9/11 and today being September 1st, that date only 10 days away, what do you foresee yourself from your sources as possibilities within the next 10 days?
Well, there are specific dates that are important to Islam. Of course, 9/11 itself is a memorial, in a sense, to the defeat of the Muslim forces at the gates of Vienna many years ago. But another specific date that's important is the 28th of September. And then we have, of course, there are other dates, but let's leave those ones out there. My sense is that because of their need to show symbols, this is the Islamists I'm referring to, in order for them to really show that they're dominant, they always like to have things matching specific dates of their calendars and historic dates that are important to them. Can we expect that we'll be attacked on one of those dates? I'm going to suggest yes. They are that heavily into symbology that they will, in fact, pick something that's very specific to them, and because they know it sends a reassuring message to all Islamists across the world. That's why, the bowing of Mr. Obama to the King of Saud, the House of Saud, was extremely important to Muslims around the world. They recognized it for what it was. It was not just the President of the United States bowing to a king. It was, in fact, a Muslim bowing to the protector of the holy sites of Medina and Mecca. And they knew that right away. We didn't. Most Americans did not see that. Some of us did because we've been trained in that. But that was very, very clear and obvious to the people around the world. The Muslims were running out in the streets praising Allah because they saw themselves as now having a leader of America as one of their own, an Islamist.
Okay, well, since we're going to go ahead and get into that, what is your position on this birther issue? I'm just throwing it out there because you mentioned they know he's a Muslim. He bowed. It was a sign that a Muslim was leading America. Do you believe there's anything to the birther issue? And I'm not talking about all the hype along the sides of the issue, but the specific issue itself of Obama being a Muslim born in Kenya. Do you give any credence to that, or have you heard anything about that from your sources?
Well, the intelligence services around the world are in full possession of the documentation that proves that, in fact, he was born in Mombasa, Kenya. And they have, in their hot little hands as well, they have the complete documentation that is being hidden by Mr. Obama that shows his dishonesty over time and the enabling of him through huge grants given to universities to meet his needs. And we're talking, a $10 million drop here, a $10 million drop there, and a $20 million drop elsewhere. So, when you're looking at Occidental College, you're looking at Columbia University, you're looking at Harvard University, every one of those schools have had to adapt something they would not normally do, but were in favor of taking money to enable Mr. Obama to move forward with the agenda that he was being presented with.
Sir, we've heard of Sharia law in America. We've heard of the jihadi flag at the White House. I'd love to know what you think about that. Sharia law in America sounds an awful lot like martial law in America to me, with this police state unfolding. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, the Islamists are extremely wise in that they know that you eat a camel one piece at a time. And so what we're seeing is incrementalism. They know that they will win if they do it one step at a time, an inch at a time. It's like the Three Stooges, slowly I turn, step by step. They understand that. They understand that that's the way they will win. And so what we are doing is we believe that we're dealing with equals, and because that's what we're taught in law, that all of us are equals. But what we're dealing with is an ideology, a religious ideology, a political ideology, and a militaristic ideology that says, no, they are dominant, they are right. Only they have the right to call the shot on morality in a nation, and they will gradually take control. The first thing they do is look for somewhere to pray. And once they've won that, they will exclude others from that area. Then they'll exclude you from that school, if it's a school. They will make dietary requests and demands, and then it gradually moves to the point where you cannot even sit in the same cafeteria as them. And so that's how they win. Very soon, of course, they're looking to take over the whole school, and then take over the village, take over the state, take over the nation. That's how they do it, incrementally, one bite of the camel at a time.
Well, we're already seeing that. I mean, the most recent story was they had to take down a sign in Vermont about bacon, so I can see exactly where you're going with this.
Yes.
I did want to ask you something else. I know you have good sources, and it's a whole different topic, but I wanted to know if you had any information on what you're seeing happening with Ukraine, Russia, the West, the sanctions. The rhetoric is hyping up to a point right now to where it's almost impossible for anybody to back down. Are you hearing anything about, I mean, are we going to go to war?
Well, let's go back a little bit in history, just a short time ago, when Mr. Putin moved into the Crimean region. One of the things that he was attempting to do, of course, was take control of the natural gas feeding into Europe, which meant that he would be able to have the switch at his beck and call for turning on or off the gas flow. And in the intelligence services, one of the things that's done is you kind of war game it. I'm going to use that term because it's an easy reference. You kind of war game it. What about a scenario? What if this happened? What if that happened? What would you do? Well, it's been well known for a long time that Crimea region and the fact that the gas pipelines to Europe feed through that area, we knew that could be a soft target. Well, being a soft, unprotected target in an area that's unstable, what would we do immediately if something like that transpired? Well, the best case scenario was that we would have the president of the United States call all the natural gas producers together in the Oval Office and then get their cooperation in taking the 30% of bleed off of the natural gas of America that's bled off into the atmosphere, and contain it, liquefy it, put it into those massive ships, container ships for natural gas, liquefied natural gas, take it over to Europe and undermine, in this case, Putin at his own game, so that it would be capitalism and free enterprise that won over the dictatorial nature of Mr. Putin and a move like that into the Crimea. What did the president do, knowing full well that that was already war gamed and it was part of his readiness chest and his repertoire? He did nothing.
So basically, I mean, it backfired? It backfired on us, what we tried to do there by ousting the duly elected Ukrainian president, installing what they're calling neo-Nazis in there right now, and Putin just walked in and took Crimea anyway. So it backfired on us? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that we knew what we needed to do and how to forestall something, and we didn't make the moves. We didn't make the right steps. If you take a look at all of the steps, put them all one after the other of what Mr. Obama has attempted to do, none of it has worked. None of it has produced a safeguarding of Christians, for example, or democracy, or even the effort that some in an area would have to forestall genocide against them. Instead, all of this has enabled the enemies of freedom to move forward and become stronger. So you begin to wonder if the pattern of events is such that, and the moves of the President of the United States is such that we always lose. Freedom always loses. Liberty loses. And people lose their lives. And in the meantime, the Islamists always seem to come out on top. Then don't you start to get a little suspicious as to what is the real, what's the game here? Whose side is Mr. Obama on?
Yes, sir, and I think we all agree with you completely. We all feel something building up right now. It's a certain tension that continues to rise. What do you think that we need to do to take our country back and to save freedom in our republic for our children and our children's children?
Well, it boils down to being very much like the Arabs, very much like the Islamists, with a recognition that it is small steps that take over a nation or win back a nation. So what we need to do is recognize when we see lawlessness and breach of law and go to the authorities that we have that will work with us, sheriffs, for example, swear out information, swear out complaint about lawlessness and the breach of law to the sheriffs. Ask them to move and arrest the malefactors. And those would be the local politicians, whether it be your House representative or your senator or your state representatives, or state senators, governors, whoever it might be, who are enabling and moving the agenda of lawlessness forward, even if it's the agenda of the president. If the president's moving forward something that's lawless, illegal, breach of law, breach of the Constitution, then he should be stopped. But we should do it individually, like you, the citizen, me, the citizen, going to the authorities that we have near us, namely our sheriffs, and asking them to stop what's going on and arrest the perpetrators. That I see is the solution, that eventually, if they started to see, if television started to broadcast, or the internet, people being perp-whopped out in leg irons and shackles off to jail, having been arrested for treason, I think the signal would be very clearly sent to everyone in the nation that treason would not be stomached for a second. And then around the world, people would understand that America has come back. America, where the rule of law has always been what we championed, and the rights and the freedoms of those who are oppressed. When they would see that, people like Putin would back down. Others would understand that strength had returned. The spine, the steel in the spine of America was back, and they better watch out.
Well, I love the visual of the perp walking the politicians, which brings us to the question of the militarization of the police. I mean, if we do go to maybe our local sheriffs in towns, like in smaller towns, but quite a few of the police departments we're seeing across the country, it's almost like they're not on our side.
Well, here I have a suggestion there as well. I would suggest that the people, and this happened in just recent days, I believe it just happened in Texas, where a town has decided to give back to the feds an MRAP, the big, huge vehicle that is mine capable of withstanding huge explosions of mines. So if instead of giving it back to the feds, why don't we take it and give it to the militia? The very people who were referenced by the founders. We are all members of the militia. So instead of having a paid-for army within the country, we, the people, are the militia. Well, give us the ability to protect ourselves, because isn't that what the police are doing? We have vested in them the authority we've been given through the Constitution, the rule of law, and the Declaration of Independence in the very beginning. It is we, the people, who give them the power to represent us and enforce our laws. So let's take that federal money, let's take those federal gifts, which is our money, it's our gifting, and use it for our own protection. And I believe that I have greater trust in many of the militia people that I've met than I would in Mr. Obama.
Totally agree there. I mean, after all, our politicians are calling our militia members domestic terrorists.
Yes, sir.
Well, and if you're a Christian, you've been labeled that as well. And my goodness, of all people in the country who have stood from the very beginning, I mean, who were the guys who wrote this stuff up? I mean, the founding fathers were deeply Christian.
Yes, sir. We're truly living in Orwellian times. Alex Jones recently put out a video stating that if people were around the world were to unite around freedom, then we could defeat the enemy. And I believe in my heart that's exactly what we need to do. We need to show our children and America and the world exactly what you said, that America is great again and that freedom is for all and liberty for all. We thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to speak with us.
Not only that,
Well, you're absolutely welcome.
we'd like to also thank you for exposing all of this stuff because, as I said before, if it wasn't for you, chances are we wouldn't, people around the world would have no idea that malls could be attacked or that these new weaponry is coming over the border. So thank you very much for what you've done.
It's my duty, and I'm willing to do it at every turn.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor, and we appreciate your time.